This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details. With the reveal of Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, we stand at the cusp of a massive lore dump for The Legend of Zelda. While Breath of the Wild gave us a brief glimpse into Hyrule's war against Calamity Ganon, Age of Calamity will undoubtedly give us far more detail into what will inevitably be a tragic tale. But Age of Calamity isn't the only place to find details on Breath of the Wild's tragic past. I'm John Reardon, you're watching NWR TV. Today we'll dive into not only the new trailer, but existing lore to break down the specific series of events that ultimately led to Link's fall, and new details regarding the hero and the Princess of Destiny. Let's start with this new trailer, and let me just say, this is a great trailer. There is a ton of information here, but it comes at us very quickly. So to make sense of everything we're seeing, we need to anchor ourselves in Breath of the Wild's timeline. We have two tools to do this. The first is, of course, Breath of the Wild itself, which gives us some events along with the characters' outfits to compare against. Second, we have the excellent Creating a Champion book from the same series as the Hyrule Historia. This gives us an in-depth breakdown of the movements of both the Hylian army and Ganon's army. With this information, we can make some progress in sorting out this trailer. We start with a shot of Link in traditional Hylian knight armor. We already know Link was a knight in service of King Roam prior to being chosen as the champion. It's also worth noting that the sword Link is wielding isn't the Master Sword, putting this scene prior to his trial to become a champion. Next, we see Zelda in her blue dress. The earliest we see this dress in Breath of the Wild is when she's dubbing Link and the other champions. We only ever see her wearing it in or around Hyrule Castle, so it's safe to assume we're in the castle in this scene. The next shot is where things start to get interesting. We see a group of Hylian soldiers fighting an army of monsters. Hyrule Field is strewn with fortifications we haven't seen before. It would be easy to assume that this is Ganon's initial attack on Castletown. Just one problem: Link is still in his knight's uniform without the Master Sword. We already know that when Calamity Ganon attacked the castle, Link, Zelda, and the other champions weren't there. They were returning from Mount Lanayru. This leads us to the assumption that this battle is still prior to the flashbacks in Breath of the Wild, and Link is still just a knight. For all we know, something that happens in this battle is what winds up getting him assigned as Zelda's appointed knight. Next, we see Mipha and Zelda with the Sheikah Slate. Link stands in the background, still in his traditional knight garb. Of course, Mipha and Link have been friends their whole lives, but this appears to be a meeting with Mipha prior to her being chosen as a champion, possibly during the excavation of the Divine Beasts? Next is Link and Revali apparently fighting, which obviously tracks with their personalities. Once again, Link is still a knight at this point. We see some ambiguous fight scenes, and Link still in that armor. King Roam commands an army of soldiers. This, though it seems like a throwaway shot, is actually pretty important. We know from Creating a Champion that King Roam was killed in the initial attack on Hyrule Castle, which once again confirms to us that this scene is prior to that event. Perhaps this is directly before or after that big fight we saw earlier. Now is where we start to see what I actually believe is Calamity Ganon's attack. The sky goes dark, and we see Ganon swirling around the castle. The Guardian Towers that appeared out of the ground to defend the castle are quickly taken over by Ganon, and the Guardians within turn on the Hylians. We jump back in time in the next shot to see King Roam addressing Link, still in armor, Zelda, and who I suspect is a 100-year younger Impa? But I can't be sure since we only see them from the back. This is definitely prior to the attacks, as this room doesn't exactly hold up too well once Ganon gets there. Next, we see a row of 5 cannons. While it's hard to tell exactly where we are, we do know the Akkala Citadel was the last stand of the Hylian army and featured 3 separate cannon batteries. Next, we see some Stalfos in a ruined town, which clearly takes place after the attack. Things get a bit more vague here, with lots of gameplay shots that could ultimately be from multiple points in the timeline. Zelda fights a Lionel in her blue outfit, putting us prior to the attack. We do see Mipha fighting a Guardian, which would make sense as she made her way back to her Divine Beast from the Spring of Wisdom. Urbosa fights off a group of Yiga clan in the Gerudo town. This could be around the same time that Link was fighting a group of them in the desert. Urbosa is wearing her champion's garb, so this would be after the champion's ceremony. Link was also wearing champion's garb in his scene in Breath of the Wild, so that tracks. A quick shot of the champions is followed by a glimpse of Divine Beast Rudania. Zora soldiers fight off moblins. This could be the same battle we saw Zelda in earlier. Daruk fights with a broken down guardian in the background. Like Mipha, this may be as he is working his way back to his Divine Beast. The same might be true for Rivali, but beyond his blue scarf, we don't have much to place the timing of this scene. Finally, we see Link and Zelda outside Castletown. The sky is red, and Link is in his blue champion's garb. Zelda is in her shrine dress. Link has the Hylian shield and Master Sword. This is the first time we've seen them after or during the attack on Hyrule Castle. The wall ahead of them is clearly under attack in this shot. A quick shot of Calamity Ganon and a glimpse of Zelda finally sealing him away ends the trailer. That's a lot, and it seems to be in no particular order, but a few things are clear. A significant chunk of Age of Calamity seems to take place not just before the attack on Hyrule Castle, but before Link is even recognized as the chosen hero. It looks as though we'll be witnessing Link's entire journey from Knight to Champion all the way through his eventual death. Well, mostly dead. But what else should we expect to see in this game? Creating a champion outlines key military movements during the war with Ganon, and that leads to some key battles we can expect to take part in. As I said, when Ganon attacks Hyrule Castle, the champions and Zelda aren't there. They're way in the southeast corner of the map, having just left the Shrine of Wisdom. When Rivali sees the attack on Hyrule Castle, the champions, Link, and Zelda split up to frantically try to enact the plan they haven't had time to prepare for. Daruk, Rivali, Urbosa, and Mipha each set off for their Divine Beasts. All we know beyond that is that when they arrive, Ganon already has control of the beasts, and each champion ultimately dies trying to reclaim them. That being said, the Guardians under Ganon's control would already be spreading across Hyrule at this point as the army of Hyrule retreats. Monsters and the Yiga clan would also be running rampant at the resurrection of their master. It makes sense that each of the champions would have to fight their way to the Divine Beasts, and I think we might be seeing that in the trailer. Meanwhile, the army of Hyrule retreated to Akala Citadel, a heavily fortified fortress on the northeast corner of Hyrule. It was perfectly fortified to fend off the incoming Guardians with 3 batteries of cannons and 2 choke points, one at the entrance to the valley and one along the bridge leading into the Citadel. This is where the army of Hyrule made its last stand, and ultimately fell to the overwhelming force of the Guardians. It's possible we see a glimpse of this fight in the trailer when we witness the battery of cannons firing. That being said, we don't know of any named characters being present at the Battle of Akala Citadel. As far as we know, Link and Zelda weren't there. It is somewhat near Daruk's route to his Divine Beast, which could mean he was present. It's also possible a new character could be introduced for us to follow through this battle. Meanwhile, Link and Zelda arrive at Hyrule Castle too late, as it has already been destroyed and King Roam killed. With the army retreating to Akala Citadel, Link hoped to lead Zelda to relative safety in Kakariko Village. He and Zelda took the road east. According to creating a champion, Link fought and destroyed multiple Guardians as they made their way to Fort Hateno. There they met up with militia made up of Hateno villagers and local garrisons of Hylian soldiers. Unlike Akala Citadel, which fell under the full force of the Guardians, Fort Hateno was able to hold out against a significantly reduced force. Zelda was finally able to unlock her bloodline's power, which would ultimately lead to her being able to seal Ganon. However, that doesn't mean the fight was without cost. Link ultimately fell at the Battle of Fort Hateno. The Sheikah then took Link to the Shrine of Resurrection, where he would sleep for 100 years, and Zelda would set off to stop Ganon herself. Before she did, she returned the Master Sword to the Great Deku Tree, where it was left waiting for Link's return. Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity is set to tell a tragic story, but it may be far more expansive than we had previously suspected. We may very well be looking at a full origin story for each of these characters. In many ways, Age of Calamity may fill in some of the story complaints we had with Breath of the Wild. It also represents exactly what I was disappointed the original Hyrule Warriors game wasn't. When Hyrule Warriors was initially shown, I had hoped it would serve as a prequel to Skyward Sword, showing the war between Hylia and Demise. If not that, I thought perhaps the Sealing War, Hyrulean Civil War, or the war with the Interlopers. Instead, we got a non-canon story outside of the primary Zelda universe. In retrospect, it makes sense that Nintendo wanted to keep Hyrule Warriors somewhat separate from the primary games, But now, finally, it feels like we're experiencing the full potential of this spin-off. A prequel to Breath of the Wild wouldn't make a very good Zelda game, however, it could make a fantastic Hyrule Warriors game. This is a spin-off the way it's meant to be done, and hopefully Nintendo makes further use of this style of world building in the future. In the meantime, check out my other Zelda lore and theory videos, and of course, subscribe for continuing updates on Age of Calamity and everything else Zelda and Nintendo. If you've spotted something I've missed, let me know in the comments. I love talking to you folks about Zelda. Better yet, join our Discord using the link in the description. Of course, subscribe before you go anywhere, and check out NintendoWorldReport.com for a whole lot more. I'm John Raridan, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.